Hello and welcome to the Inside the Lab weekly live experience live show. I'm Terrence, your host and operator, and if you're here with this live, welcome, welcome, welcome as you start to file in. And if you're here watching on the replay, shout out to you, our replay viewers. I tell you what, we're just going to jump right into it here as the show is going to flow a little bit more seamlessly as we continue on the evolution of the live stream, which in today's show we're discussing or defining the process and going over everything, which is a relative term, but at least some of the key important factors, everything essentially you should know when looking to build a PC. Now, this also all the details and facts that we're going to share with you throughout the duration of this live stream also applies to if you are looking for a pre-built system or if you are looking for a custom pre-built system. These same facts are applicable to your situation just as much as if you were looking to build your own system or if you were looking to upgrade your own system. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're a first time viewer on the replay, let me know down in the chat. And if you're as you file in and you hear me say this more than once, if you're a first time viewer, let us know with a first time viewer in the first time or hashtag first over in the chat. I see we have brother Anthony's in the building. What's up, Sparta Rules? It's good to see you. And I also want to invite you or welcome you. I'm not sure if it'll be available for our replay viewers or our replay fam, but for those of you who are here with us right now, you can take part in the live poll that's over in the chat, which is, did you build your own game? Did you build your current or, previous PC, like, or did you build it yourself? So as you follow in, you'll hear me point visitors over to that poll. Feel free to take part in the poll. We will have more polls throughout more live streams. So uh, let me jump over to the chat here again. I want to say hi to Sparta Rules. Also, shout out to Mrs. Mod, our moderator, helping the conversation flow nice and easy, and of course, engaging with the community. If you have any questions throughout the duration of this live stream, this live show, this is an interactive show. This is an interactive experience. So feel free to, add to the conversation if you have any issues or, pain points you may need help with solving. Also, feel free to share them with us, especially for our replay viewers. Going forward, the live streams or the live shows will they'll reduce in size to make them a little bit easier to watch and to consume while still pushing highlights, right? Because our live shows could probably still very much run in excess of over an hour. But I tell you what, we're going to jump right into it, and we're also going to do it a little bit differently here. Let's jump over to our ways you can support the channel or ways you can support the message, the brand and everything else. And that's first and foremost, most importantly, by signing up for our email list. I took out our website and the merch store because I've mentioned it so many times throughout the duration of, or in the beginning and end of each live show. I may casually drop them, but I will probably do dedicated content around the merch. But for a surefire way to support me as a creator would definitely be signing up for our ever growing, ever expanding email list, because Unity does start with you, and this is one of the best ways that would allow me to have a direct line of communication with the community and with the audience, especially if the channel becomes compromised and we may need to, reload, not so much as reboot, because we would just be bringing back the same vibes, but just in case we would maybe say need to reload the content or reload the channel, I would be able to get into direct contact with some of our core members or core audience and viewers. So sign up for our email list. It's totally free. It's easy to sign up for. All you need is your email address and your first name. This is the best way to receive upcoming content programming changes or any other sister channels we may launch underneath the Lab Monarch. So definitely sign up for our email list. You can find the links to our merch store and our website down in the description box below. Or if you're watching on a replay, you can likely find it with a pinned comment at the top of the comment section. So let's jump right over into it, and let's start with our title card for the conversation of today's live stream. As I see, Butter says hello. It's good to see you, Allie. Hello there, Butter. But let's jump right into it, starting with the title of this conversation or the title of this live stream. which is defining the process and everything you need for a gaming PC. I kind of flex the title. That can be everything you need to know, everything you may need. This conversation will cover both of those topics, if you will, as you can apply them to your situation. Remember, regardless if you are building your system yourself or you are looking to buy a pre-built gaming machine, but it's good to look before you leap. And that's with building or buying because building and buying a gaming PC requires thorough planning, a sizable and flexible budget, and guidance as you make your way through the planning stage to the actual unboxing, setup, and build process, right? And that process, if not traversed properly, can lead to costly mistakes that can prohibit you from, you're preventing you to complete your system from the ability to start, finish, and actually enjoy your system. So, what are a few precautions or steps you should know or you should take before making that leap, right? That's what we're discussing during this live stream or live show, while of course answering any and all of your questions along the way. And again, if you're a first time viewer, welcome to the live. I'm Terrence, your host and operator here of this live experience. And with that out of the way, as I usually say at the end of our other videos, but with that out of the way, let's jump right into it and start with our first, I guess, tip, if you will. Um, and that's one you may hear me say quite often or quite a lot, and that's research every component before buying it. But most importantly, research every component can be Whoa, sorry about that. That could be your motherboard, your CPU, your case, your graphics card, your power supply unit, your storage, your cooler, any peripherals you may want to add to your system. It's good to not necessarily future proof, but make sure your components are able to keep up with the actual future. That's a little bit of game we've been laying out here over the last past couple live streams. And it's very important to know because technology moves at an accelerating rate and it's always changing. There's something always new or fast. For example, 11th generation Intel CPUs came out not too long ago, and Alder Lake is surely on its way with a new socket. So that means you're going to need to buy a new motherboard, likely in the second half of the year. So it's good to not necessarily future proof your components, but if you invested in the right motherboard, say for the LGA 1200 socket, you would know that Alder Lake coming out doesn't necessarily make your setup, um, you know, incapable of running modern games and still being able to handle demand and task, at least on the level of your CPU, because even on that socket, you have a lot of upgrade options you can choose from, all the way up to the 10900K to even the 11900K, which is only 8 cores and 16 threads, but still a slight IPC increase over 10th generation. So just something to consider, right? Like, don't necessarily aim for future proofing your system. Don't think, oh, I need to spend 1600, buy a 1600 watt power supply unit just so I'm good in the future. No, maybe consider an 850 watt gold rated plus power supply unit that's fully modular, and that way you're at least covered with any additional pins you may need to exchange, right? With about an 850 watt power supply, you're likely looking at maybe an 8 pin, at least an 8 pin power connector that you would need. And with, say, the 3080 having a 750 watt PSU requirement, and I believe that, I could be wrong, but I know the RTX 3090 takes 16 pins. But either way, it has a 750 watt power supply unit requirement. So would you need a 1600 watt power supply unit? Not necessarily, right? Like, you can keep up with the future, right, as the future changes, but not necessarily trying to beat the future, because that's going to be a little difficult for you to mitigate with, again, technology changing. The LGA 1200 socket, we've only gotten 10th generation and 11th generation Intel CPUs out of that socket, and it's getting ready to change to the LGA 1700 socket, which I do want to do a dedicated video on Alder Lake as we get closer to its release, because I've been kind of on the fence here, and I've been considering myself, like, should I hold out, excuse me, and wait to see if Alder Lake's unique design is able to deliver enough, say, performance, but still yet remain efficient enough to control temperatures and power draw. And that remains to be seen. But I am highly intrigued and curious with Alder Lake, as it's coming with support for DDR4 and DDR5 and PCIe Gen 5 interface. So Alder Lake is a lot to get excited about, but it's not so much exciting knowing that if you just invested in an LGA 1200 motherboard, that socket necessarily isn't outdated. it's just obsolete, but that still doesn't make it irrelevant. There's still a lot of value left on that socket, especially with the $189 10600K, for example, which you want to, when you're researching every component before you're buying it, you want to make sure that your CPU and motherboard are compatible with one another. This is especially true for AMD with the AM4 socket supporting a wide range of Ryzen series CPUs, right? Now with Intel, you're usually locked between two CPU generations on that chipset or on that motherboard socket. So when you're doing your research, make sure that you are leaving yourself with a robust upgrade path on that chipset or on that socket, knowing that, hey, if I invest in an X570 motherboard and maybe say Ryzen 5 3600 or 5600X now, what possibilities do I have beyond this CPU, say when my needs become more demanding or I want more CPU performance, or even on the graphics card side, I may want to upgrade to a graphics card that has a higher power draw or may require additional supplemental pin connectors on it for power draw. So make sure your CPU and your motherboard are compatible, has a bright future ahead, that you're able to say add M.2 slots, or if you're interested in overclocking, maybe that's something you want to ensure that you are investing in, say, an enthusiast chipset. That's the Z chipset over on Intel side and the X chipset over on AMD side. For example, the X570, like I just mentioned, or the Z490 and Z590 chipsets, which support 10th generation and 11th generation respectively. But another tip that you want to ensure while you are in this phase of researching every component before you buy it, seriously, your CPU, there's seven if you buy a Ryzen CPU with, or any CPU like a i5 with a cooler, but there's essentially eight if you're in a enthusiast class CPUs like an i7 or an i9, then you're likely going to need to invest in an aftermarket cooler, right? So essentially there could be 7 to 8 components that you need to research before you buy them. This is especially true if you are looking to build your system yourself. This may be a bit challenging if you're looking to buy a non-custom pre-built PC, right? Like one that's already assembled, one that comes shipped from Amazon, or you walk into a Best Buy or something to that extent, Micro Center, and you see a system that's already configured. You might be able to inquire as to what the components or what makes up this PC, but you have no you don't have no decision making power into what goes into that PC. Sure, you can upgrade it down the road, but there could be some other limitations because again, you didn't research that case. That case was presented to you. You didn't research that motherboard, for example. Maybe it could be an OEM motherboard or an H series or a B series motherboard that's not necessarily an enthusiast chipset. This is why it's good to research your component before you buy it when you're building. Now, when you're going with a custom pre-built, you have a little bit more control over what goes into that system, right? And this is even if you, regardless of if you're working with a system integrator or you're working with a friend or a family member that's going to help you with your system, research every component before you buy it, okay? And this applies to, again, buying or shopping for a pre-built. You have no control over the parts that's going in. But if you can see the parts that are advertised and listed, say for example, it has a Ryzen 5 2600, right? It has 500 gigabyte SSD. So you might want to say, hey, well, I know 500 gigabytes is not enough. I wonder if this motherboard has support for M.2 because I want next generation fast read and write speeds, right? Fast load times on my games, fast system responsiveness moving in between applications, right? Research every component before you buy it. Your CPU, your motherboard, your memory, its frequency, its latency, its compatibility with your motherboard to enable a successful XMP or DLCP on AM4 or Intel, right? Your storage solution to, even if you're interested in an M.2 slot, maybe you want more than one M.2 slot, right? Like the mini ITX build we published on Monday. And if you're watching now and you haven't, you're like, what mini ITX build video? And you didn't get that notification, which I've been meaning to, let me switch back here really fast because I've been meaning to drop a poll over on the community tab to see who received that notification, just as a test to see how many of the subscribers did YouTube push that notification out to. I'm very curious, but if you haven't yet seen it, you can also find that in the description box below or in the pinned chat. But I am meaning to put a community tab poll out just to see who did and did not receive the notification to that video. But it's important to note that each of these steps or tips, if you will, are intended to help you save money and time and invest both on your system and with your system, right? That's being able to say scale up a certain component, maybe go from a 500 gigabyte SSD to a 1 terabyte NVMe M.2 SSD, and also save you time by not having to say run into a roadblock, which is something we experienced in the mini ITX build. Again, very good story. You should really check it out. If you're here on the replay, I highly recommend too. If you say, hey, this I can't make the whole live stream, but you definitely going to want say more inside the lab. Save that video to your watch later playlist. It's a good recommended watch. But researching your components can help you save time and money to allow you to invest that into your actual system rather than again being scaling up a certain component, right? Maybe getting that case you want that has RGB ARGB fans, or maybe adding an LED strip, maybe switching from an air cooler to an AIO, or going with a case with tempered glass and with a little bit more of a premium feel, right? With maybe high quality metals and durable metals. But each one of these steps are designed to help you save time and money. It's very important that you research every component before you buy it to ensure that they are compatible with one another and that you won't run into any system bottlenecks. And most importantly, it's going to play well with your monitor. Now, jumping right over into the second tip, or the second you should know fact, at least I'm gonna call it that, right? And that's take your time when building, upgrading, or servicing your PC. Um, that sounds, Captain Obvious is obvious, right? Like I'm stating the obvious here, but you'd be surprised at how excited one could be if you're an inexperienced builder, or you're just excited and you're just rushing, you're not American, it happens when you rush. Um, you could you can open up a can of worms, right? What went from adding an extra SSD to now fall into the category of I need a new motherboard, or I need a new power supply unit, or I've knocked out the CPU cooler pin and I plugged my system on, didn't realize it, and now now my system won't turn on. So you should take your time when upgrading, building, or servicing your PC, right? Starting with building, my best advice to you would be for any new or inexperienced builders. And if you're here now, you're saying, "Hey, Lab, no, I'm quite experienced, and I'm quite an experienced builder." If you're here with us now, or you're here on the replay, I welcome you to share any facts that maybe even I missed, because God knows I'm not perfect, right? And I forget things, but if there are certain things that maybe you experienced that helped you overcome any obstacles with building your PC, share them with the community here in the live chat with us right now, or down in the comment section below, because I love engaging with our replay fan. But when you are building, it's best to guide the parts in. Like, don't force it. Literally guide the parts in. And if you're unsure about a pin or a connector, check your motherboard's manual, especially for your case and your motherboard. In fact, I recommend that if you're even if you can't have the physical manual in hand in front of you, or on your, not in front of you because the PC should be in front of you, but maybe on your left or your right, or somewhere behind you, right? Because usually when I'm building or working, I have stuff spread out everywhere, right? Like Mrs. Mile will testify. But with your case and motherboard, even if you can't have the physical manual on hand, grab a phone, grab a secondary device, a backup tablet, doesn't matter, maybe a computer next to you, or one that's already built, a laptop. Search for that motherboard or search for the manual, I'm sorry, online, for both the case and or the motherboard, because chances are you're going to have questions or issues along the way, especially if, say, you had your system built for you and you weren't part of the process, and now you have an issue. Maybe, say, your system is out of the builder's warranty. It may be within manufacturer warranty, which usually extends past a year, but some system integrators have different bylaws and rules set in place, which defines their warranty and what exactly covers it, right? So say your storage drive could fail, right? Say your storage drive could fail, and you're unsure of which SATA port you should use on the motherboard, where the motherboard recommends, or you needed to unplug the input output headers, and they're very difficult to see on most motherboards. You will almost certainly need to refer to your motherboard's manual to identify which one is the plus for the power and the negative for the power, and then power switch and any other input output connectors that you'll need to plug in. Again, it's good to guide the parts in, don't force. This is especially true with, say, your 24 pin cable connector. That's the ATX cable connection that goes on the, typically is on the right side of the motherboard, and then your 8 pin and 4 pin CPU connectors. Same thing applies for there, right? And with your SSDs, any NVMe M.2s, all of those things, check your motherboard's manual. Okay, it could also help you identify any necessary BIOS changes you need to make along the way. You could be running and rocking, rolling with an older system, and if your system's 3 or 4 years old, then you may not be able to. First of all, you're probably met with a lot of dust and other things, but it may be difficult to find the right direction you need to be on to service your system, right? Upgrade. It could be not just in the form of service. I'm jumping the gun here a little bit as we're talking about building. So let's revert back to that here really fast, because when you're building, take your time, guide the parts in, don't force it. Chances are, if you have to force a component into any part of the, say, case or motherboard or graphics card, then it just doesn't belong, fam. Check your power pins, make sure they are aligned in the upright position or the downright position, depending on where the notch is, right? Take your time, and I'll take it next level and tell you it's okay. Take pictures, right? Take pictures so you can at least have some point of reference you can refer back to if you're unsure, or maybe you had to have your system laid out over a couple of days, right? Maybe a couple of weeks. Maybe you had to save up for that component that you figured out was causing the issue. And, you maybe have to wait for it to come into the mail or come in the mail. So take pictures. It's perfectly fine. There's no shame in my game. And I'm telling you, don't have any in yours either. But on the subject of upgrading, uh, it's good to make sure that the new component is actually compatible with your other components before buying that upgrade. And that's especially for parts like your power supply unit, your motherboard, and your case. Let's say your air cooler failed and you want to upgrade to a more robust cooler, or your air cooler is not getting the job done, or you're experiencing high temperatures, or you're like, not only do I want to replace my thermal paste, but I'm just going to swap out the cooler as well. So you want to make sure that the new cooler, first of all, fits your case, right? And has a high enough rated TDP to cool your CPU, so you're not going backwards. And also, if it's a GPU upgrade, you want to make sure that if it's not fully modular, then it has the required pins to power said graphics card. Okay, so this is why it's good to, when you're upgrading, to make sure that the new component is compatible with your other components before buying it. This falls under the category, fam, of researching your components before buying them. This falls under that same category. Also, with servicing your parts, which we'll jump down to that here, we'll segue right into servicing your PC, because just like when you want to make sure that the part that you're upgrading, let's say you're upgrading your motherboard, for example, you want to make sure your motherboard fits into the case. Your new motherboard will fit into your case. Maybe you need to consider an entire new platform switch. Maybe it's just not the motherboard. Maybe you're also switching out your CPU. Maybe it's a borderline entire uh, internal core swap, right? Or internal component swap. Maybe you're swapping out the whole entire case, right? But when you're servicing your PC and you want to make sure that you fully diagnose the problem and try to eliminate any or all other possibilities before making the determination that that's the part that needs to be replaced, right? You could say turn it on, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm getting a black screen, right? Like my system's not turning on, it's just a black screen. It worked before I replaced my graphics card, and now I put my new graphics card on, now I'm getting a black screen. Maybe there's something wrong with my monitor because my system was working perfectly fine. I'm gonna go out and buy another monitor, which that maybe couldn't have been the case. Maybe it's just a faulty graphics card driver, or maybe you need to reseat the graphics card both on the PCIe lane and its power pin connector before, say, needing to go out and buy a new monitor. Let's say you're getting higher temperatures and you think, hey, wait a minute, I think my AIO could be failing. And so you say, you know what, I'm just going to go out, I'm going to buy an even better AIO, when it could have just been at the thermal paste, right? Like say it was let's say it was thermal paste from the manufacturer. Maybe the thermal paste wasn't that great, and maybe the system could benefit from exchanging the thermal paste with an aftermarket solution, and that would give you lower temperatures versus, say, upgrading your cooler. So when you are servicing your PC, make sure that the parts you are servicing or replacing will actually fix your PC, right? Let's say your system is running slow and you're saying, man, you know what, I think my storage drive is failing, or something's not right, my system isn't as responsive as it was 6 months ago, 7 months ago. It could be that you need to reinstall Windows, right? Reflash that drive, and there could be some form of spyware, or there could be a virus that's on your computer that's slowing down performance, right? So make sure that the component that you are actually servicing will actually solve the problem and not create more, or say cause you to have to keep dumping money into your system. PC gaming is expensive. It's more expensive now because of the GPU situation, which we're not going to go into. We've talked about it so much, but I tell you what, excuse me, let me switch back here really fast, because on the pop-up live stream we just did on Friday, I believe it was Friday, Thursday, on a pop-up live stream we did Thursday, I talked a little bit about how the change in Ethereum 2.0, with the Ethereum 2.0 update dropping in December, is essentially going to make mining obsolete, right? Like overnight, it's going to make mining GPUs um, obsolete, where miners won't need the graphics card power to mine Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that could drastically change the graphic card market in the situation, slowly, of course, but surely. That's just one sign where the dominoes could begin to just fall and trickle on down, and we begin to see improved stock. Now, my prediction is we'll likely see some of those popular mining graphics cards like the RTX 3060 Ti and the RTX 2070, the 5700 XT, and especially the RX 580, a slightly older graphics card. We should see those prices start to drop over time. So we're going to talk about it at the end of the actual presentation and run back that article. I believe it was from Digital. I have it up somewhere. I believe it's from Digital Trends, but we're going to talk about that article a little bit, as it is something to look forward to. I continue to assess the used market and try to find trends and patterns of prices dropping over there. Some graphics cards, especially like the RX 580, is still selling for about 50 to 60% more than it's actually worth. I mean, that's a graphics card that should be selling for about no more than 200 bucks. Like, that would be pushing it. Like, that would have to depend on the actual variant of the RX 580, but that's a graphics card that should be selling for no more than about $200. So I'm still seeing them selling for about $400 to $420, and that's the 1660 Super as well. Prices are coming down. It's certainly better than the, say, 80% to 100% markup that we saw, not even maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago. They are slowly starting to come down, and those graphics cards like the RTX 3060, I almost said RTX 580, like the RTX 3060 Ti and the RX 580 and the 1660 Super, those are some of the most sought after graphics cards for mining Bitcoin and Ethereum. From my research and my understanding, the RTX 3060 Ti is the best overall graphics card to mine on. So that could be one reason why those graphics cards sell even slightly higher than some of its other counterparts, right? And the 1660 Super, which at one point was selling for about $700 to $800, but now I'm starting to see them for about $400 to $500, which is still about 50% more than it's worth, because that's a graphics card that, even if it's used, right, even if it's used, should be selling for no more than about $200 to $249, somewhere in between there. Like, I wouldn't want to pay no more than $250 for a used 1660 Super. Of course, that could vary and depend on where you are located in the market, but I know, me personally, I wouldn't pay that much. But same thing with the RTX 2070, another popular graphics card for mining Bitcoin and Ethereum. My best guess is, as we turn over into the 2022, we will see these graphics cards flooded over onto the market, which will make new graphics cards more accessible because they won't be targeted and sought after by GPU miners. So, all right, but we'll save that towards the end of the live stream. So do be sure to stick around towards the end for that one when we jump into that segment. But jumping back over, we were discussing servicing your PC and how you want to make sure that you are fully diagnosing the issue or the problem and trying to eliminate any or all possibilities, right? Like use process of elimination as a good starting point to make sure that the component you actually need to replace is the component that will actually fix your system. Excuse me, sorry about that. And now jumping over into the third, right? Our third tip, and that's make sure you have the tools to get the job done, right? Before you build, walk through your parts, check for any required tools that you maybe didn't account for or that are needed to get the job done. You could maybe need a low profile or you could maybe need a hexagon screw, right? But let's start off with my first recommendation. Did I see W? Oh, okay, that's Cliff. It's good to see you, Cliff. Cliff says my PC gaming stole my girlfriend. Man, that's a heck of a steal. That's one we are okay with. That's one we are okay with. For y'all who saw the Wonder Rig build, the Mrs. Mod, that's that video. That video, I had audio issues in that video. In fact, y'all heard me share. A lot of you who are here with me right now, you heard me share that story on previous live streams. But to give you the TLDR version for the replay viewers who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, and viewers who are just now joining us, for the first part of maybe my 25 or 20 videos, I'd have to fact check that, but on the first 20 to 25 videos, I thought my lav mic was compatible with my camera with like an adapter that I bought with that camera. I thought it would be able to transfer the audio over from my lav mic to the camera, but ignorant to lab that where I would do audio checks, I'm like, oh well, it's picking up the audio. It was just picking up the audio from the camera's mono microphone. And so I thought, if things were going right, but then I would go into post and sit down and edit, and I would still say, crap, man, you know what, the audio still sucks. What's going on? So after a while, I did a little bit of research into it aside from building, because that's the duality with being a content creator. You're just not researching PC parts. You're just not trying to stay up on all the current technology trends, but you also need to stay up on all of the, creator tools you're needed to, I guess, continue to present content to your audience. So, I watched a couple of videos, did additional research on my camera setup and just ways to improve the audio, which is always a consistent struggle. I'm here to tell you I have not, say, mastered the audio, but I do have plans here coming up in the future that's going to help definitely dramatically improve the audio. And with a couple of videos, I like I, in the Doomsday Clock video, I saw that I was having technical difficulties with the camera, and it was only registered it was only registering the microphone in the mono format, and I couldn't change it. And I saw that in post and heard the difference, and it was either put that video out as it was, or just reshoot the whole thing, right? Off the top of my head, which would have been a video on the same topic, but it just would have been a totally different video. But anyway, I digress. That was supposed to be the TLDR version, but to go all the way back, PC gaming, I didn't want to say it stole my wife, but it definitely took up a little bit more of our time, because in the Wonder Rig video, that was essentially the same rig that Mrs. Mod uses right now, the golden red Wonder Rig, and we've actually been discussing ways we could revisit that video by updating the Wonder Rig by maybe say in a new case, but she can't seem to let this case go. She really likes that Rex Gear case that we use for that video. And Cliff says not much, honestly. Oh, saying hi to Cliff, letting us know he's been playing a little bit of Diablo 3. And Cliff says, no, I don't play Fortnite. Yeah, we've been playing a lot of. That's our casual fun. But again, I also want to welcome you guys as you tune in. If you haven't seen it yet, there is a poll. Let me point to the right. Where am I pointing to the right? Right over here. All right, there is a poll at the top of the chat. I hope I'm pointing. This is so awkward. But there's a poll at the top of the chat there with the simple question of, did you build your own gaming PC, with a yes or no, or I don't have one yet. And if you don't have one yet, you're in the right place. I welcome you to, first and foremost, if you haven't yet, to hit the like button for me, give this stream a like. And if you haven't yet and you're here on the replay, or you're here with us right now and you're not subscribed yet, hopefully this live stream or during this live show, I am entertaining or educational enough to earn your subscription. Eclipse says she's chauffeuring me today to Micro Center, and I get to kick back and listen to the live show. Nice. That's a good. That's a nice field trip. I love my Micro Center field trips as well. Except the last time I went for that mini ITX build video, it was a a specific in and out mission. I told Mrs. Mod the whole time there, I'm walking back to where the CPUs are. I know that micro center like the back of my hand, and I went there, and it's in Parkville, Maryland too. I don't know if anybody's watching, but it's in Parkville, Maryland. That's my micro center. You might see me there. But the whole time we're walking back to the CPU, I'm just like, we get in, we get out, we get in, we get out, we get the CPU, we go, we get the CPU, we go. I'm looking at like we're walking by keyboards, peripherals, monitors, builds. The gentleman's telling me they have 3080 Ti's in stock, and that's just the beginning. And I'm seeing motherboards. I'm like, nope. He says, could I help you? I said, yep, I know exactly what I need. I need that CPU right there. I would buy it, go, and I'm like, get in, get out, get in, get out. I was quite proud of myself. I actually spent less than 30 minutes in a micro center. That's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment. It probably was even less. We might have spent more time waiting to check out than I did going to get the component and coming back to check out. We probably spent more time doing that. But it was essentially a get in and get out mission. That was the goal. But awesome stuff, Cliff. Glad to have you on. Appreciate you being here. And yeah, man, be safe on the road. So let me switch back here because we were discussing in our third tip, and that is to make sure you have the tools, the right tools to get the job done. You may even find yourself like WASD moves, maybe needing to make a micro center trip, right? Maybe you didn't account for any of these, tips I'm about to present to you, and you may need to step aside. Excuse me. Speaking of step aside, I need to take a drink. But you may need to say step away from the build and go pick up any other tools. But before you start building, like before you get into that, this still very much is a part of the researching your system, right? In the planning phase, whether you're upgrading, building, or servicing your PC. Walk through your parts, check for any required tools that you're going to need to get the job done. If you're replacing or servicing your CPU cooler, make sure you have replacement thermal paste and isopropyl or aka rubbing alcohol and lint-free pads to be able to remove the old thermal paste. Right, it's something you want to do on the CPU and the and the cooler, the back of the cooler. You want to remove the old thermal paste. Now, what I use makeup pads. You might have. I don't think I've did it on camera, but anytime I am dealing with, say, replacing coolers or testing CPUs, plural, or in the graphics card, where we replace the thermal paste on the graphics card, depending on what I'm doing, I use makeup remover pads, right? Like they're lint free, they wipe really easy, no muss, no fuss, and I use Isperol at least 89% rubbing alcohol. You want to make sure you have those things. Say if you're looking to looking to replace your CPU cooler, maybe you're looking to replace or upgrade your cooler, go from an air to an AIO. You still very much will need those three things, right? Also, what works really well are coffee filters. Coffee filters works really well too. At one point, I used coffee filters too, but the makeup pads, they're circular and they're just easier to use, and they generally cover the whole entire socket. I just dab once or twice with the rubbing alcohol, right? Let's say if this was rubbing alcohol, it's a Pepsi from the pop-up live stream. Actually, if you guys saw that, I was drinking a Pepsi, but which I shared that on the community tab post too. Give it a watch. I thought we were going to roll the credits, right, Cliff? I thought we were going to beat the game, but we didn't. So we're likely going to pop up and try to finish it again. It seems like as soon as you get closer to the end, there's more and more and more layers to the game. But I digress. But I take the rubbing alcohol, I take the makeup pad. I wish I had one with me, and I just dab once or twice in the center of it, and it wipes the thermal paste off seamlessly off of the back of the IHS and off the back of the cold plate on the AIO and off the CPU cooler. Another pro tip, if you're especially for removing a AMD based CPU, rather that be on the AM3 Plus or AM3 socket or AM4 socket, a pro tip to do if you're having issues, say, removing the cooler off of the motherboard. I'm gonna share a tip that a technique or strategy that I use that has proven so far. Let me knock a little bit of wood. Excuse me. So far, that has proved helpful for me in terms of removing a CPU cooler, especially if, say, it was a system that's brought to me and it hasn't been turned on in a while, or the person couldn't get it to, say, turn on because it turns on and shuts off immediately, and they're like, oh, and I may need to service the CPU cooler. Maybe I suspect there was some overheating issues going on there. If I take everything out of the case, again, I'm process of elimination. take everything outside of the case, test to see if the motherboard will, if the system will turn on a box, right? You know how we do on, say, on a box, and if it does, then I know there could be an issue where there's metal touching the motherboard, and to prevent it from shorting out, the system automatically shuts down. Or if it's doing the same thing outside of the case, then the issue could be much deeper, and that likely starts with either the RAM or the CPU. You can't get into the BIOS if either of those two components are malfunctioning, or there's some form of builder's error that needs to be factored in to the reason why the system won't turn on. So regardless of what it is you're doing, but I was telling you about a technique I use, and that's I take the motherboard, right? I take it out of the case. More likely, if you're trying to service a system, I recommend you take it out of the case, but everybody does things a little differently. But I just lean the motherboard over and I let gravity do the work. I don't try to pull the CPU cooler off. I don't. I just tilt the motherboard essentially upside down and just let gravity pull, because gravity will pull the cooler at a much balanced rate than I would. It's just going to fall. It's going to fall off. I don't have to pull it off. It's just going to fall off. So I tip the motherboard upside down and I just hold the cooler and I just kind of just let it just gradually fall, and eventually it just bloop, falls right on down. Now I have done, yes, the blow dryer method that works too, just using, maybe 5 second intervals of, the CPU socket is squared, so it's you go from corner to corner of the square with maybe about 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there, 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there if it's an older system, and then I tilt the motherboard back once again and just let it shoop, it just falls right off. I don't pull CPU coolers off on the AM4 socket. I use that technique, and gravity is my aid or assistance. So just a little bit of a pro tip. Let me see, Sparta Rules. Let me jump over here to the chat really fast before we switch back over into the third segment. Again, if you just now joined us, welcome to our weekly live Q&A, our weekly live show. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend you, first of all, give this video a like this, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's get it out in front of more people, even for replay's sake. But Sparta Rule says, I'm jealous. I don't have Micro Center really nearby. I'm sorry. He says, I'm jealous. I don't have a Micro Center nearby. The closest one to me, 5 to 6 hours away. Man, that's like a vacation. You and Jordan, y'all might want to get plan a vacation. Plan a vacation by the Micro Center, maybe do other things. But yeah, that sucks. Mine isn't necessarily close. I'm closer to a Best Buy than I am Micro Center, and I really wish it was the other way around. I actually have to pass a Best Buy on my way to Micro Center, and being in between, say, Delaware and PA, I have a Best Buy that's maybe 25 minutes down on the highway, or I have a Best Buy that's 25 minutes down deeper in Maryland. But Micro Center, no, it's about a good 45, 55-minute drive, even for myself. So when I go, I have a list, at least a mental list of things I want to look for, or what I may need to complete a build. But that does suck, Sparta Rules. But hey, make it a trip, make it make it a journey. Being that far away, I would imagine it'd have to be. I mean, like 5 to 6 hours. That's not from here to New York City. For my West Coast friends, I know you like New York City. Wow, that must be cool. But let me tell you, from where I live to New York City, it's probably about a 2.5 hour drive. So yeah, I could get to New York City almost. I could do a round trip, and the time it would take for you to go to Micro Center. That really sucks, dude. But hey, Micro Center is in your system, which I'm not sure if you got it yet. But man, once you get your system, you're gonna feel like a kid in a candy store, and you're going to be able to just relate to your surroundings, and it's going to make you feel like you're part of something much bigger than yourself, man. It's a great experience as a PC, and I mean, as a creator, I love it. But even as, say, a PC fanatic, somebody that just loves and enjoys working with my hands, working with computers, building computers, servicing computers, helping people get into this hobby, I love going. I try to also make it a learning experience when I do go. And Cliff says, I use Noctua into H2 paste. Good all around. Oh, man, I had me some Noctua into H2 as well. I believe it was that model. It was Noctua. And that thermal paste it worked really well. Like, I really liked that thermal paste. And I ran out, and then I just switched over to some Corsair TM30. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation, but it's good to even do your research on thermal paste, because each of them have different, have different thermal paste or thermal ratings, and they each dissipate heat in higher and lower ways. So even still, very much do your research in your thermal paste. If that's something you're looking to do, replace your CPU, or if you're really feeling spicy and zesty and you want to replace the thermal paste on your GPU, maybe it's an older thermal paste. Maybe you were able to take advantage of, say, an older R9 380 or 270 or 280. If it's a graphics card that's about 8 to 10 years old, depending on how much it was ran or how often it was used, what the ambient temperatures were like, how much dust was accumulated, so many different factors. But if you're seeing early signs, like in one of our one of my favorite videos we've ever produced on the channel, and that was that R9 380X video we did, where that story is true to heart, fam. Like, that I did not know that the graphics card would do that. So when you're seeing in the beginning of that video where I'm like, do y'all see that? That's not supposed to happen. That was my exact words when I first fired up that graphics card. And that footage y'all saw was the first time I was supposed to be reviewing, just kind of showing you the performance or the FPS output on that graphics card for the time with modern games. But the moment I fired up Heaven, the Valley benchmark, the Heaven Valley 2.0 benchmark, it shot up. Boom, 89 degrees C, 90 degrees C. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. And this person, the seller, sure as heck did not tell me that this was the case with this graphics card, right? But I got it for under $100, and of course that's the reason why. But I believe I used Noctua NTH2 thermal paste on that graphics card. And it, of course, as you all saw in the video, it lowered temperatures dramatically. But good stuff. And let me scroll up here really fast to get caught up in the chat. Yes, Cliff says that would suck, Spider Rules. That would probably save me some money though. Going being that far away from a micro center. Probably. I mean, it's probably helped me out too, because anytime if I had the smallest amount of money, that's any excuse just to get up and go. It could be $20, $50. Hey, that's the excuse to go to Micro Center. Maybe I want to buy some cables, or maybe another screwdriver. That's just my excuse to get my foot in the door. But totally understand. I'm with you, Cliff. As Cliff says, let him run for a minute, especially AM4. I took a blow dryer to a Hyper 212 one time when the system went power on, heated up the cooler at the base just enough, and it worked. Yeah, again, I've used on coolers that are a little bit more stubborn on the AM4 and AM3 socket. I've took it to the blow dryer as well, especially if the thermal paste is dried up, right? Like if it's an older system and the person's saying, "Hey, I have high temperatures and my PC's been sitting. Can you help me get it back on?" And I'm like, "How long has it been sitting? 2 months, 3 months?" I'm like, "Wow, that thermal paste is really dried up. There's no way." Four corners, man. If you have kids, young kids, they play the game Four Corners. I play Four Corners with the blow dryer CPU, sure enough, and go around, and that helps. I try to avoid pulling AM3 and AM4 CPUs off of the socket, but gravity. So far, that technique has worked for me. Just flipping the motherboard, even if it's just tilted slightly over, like lay the motherboard down on the side, and so it's not excuse me, completely upside down. I'll just lay it down on the side and just tilt it over a little bit and just grab the motherboard, and it'll just slowly just fall down. I just lift the motherboard and the cooler up, and gravity will just slowly let the CPU just bounce right on down, right? Or just let the CPU cooler. We don't want the CPU to bounce down, but it'll let the CPU cooler bounce down. Sparta Rules, brother Anthony says, I get my PC on my birthday on Monday. Nice. I was hoping, I was thinking about it earlier this morning. I was like, man, I hope we were able to get brother Sparta Rules, brother Anthony, his PC at least on his birthday, and that's one heck of a birthday gift. So early shout out to Sparta Rules. Happy birthday to you, brother. As Monday is a non-live day, so we won't be one another, but maybe we'll give you a special shout out over in the Discord, because I know Sparta Rules is over in the Discord. And again, shout out to the Discord fam. I really appreciate y'all for being in the Discord. I see y'all. I read your messages, even though I don't reply to all of them. I do kind of go back and just read the conversation, is because it's so special, and I do appreciate every single one of you who have contributed to the Discord. And you're like, hey, Inside the Lab, we got a Discord. If you're on a replay, or you're here with us right now, and you're like, Inside the Lab, you got a Discord? Yes, we do have a Discord. Pretty soon it's going to go behind a paywall once we're able to hopefully unlock channel memberships here on YouTube and over on Patreon. But for the most part, if you want to sign up for the Discord now and help us grow our Discord into a robust community, then hit me up over on Twitter or Instagram at Inside the Lab YT, or right here on the live chat after the live show, right here on the live chat, or after the live show, and I will send you the invite to join our Discord community. But I also send the link out to our email subscribers. I haven't done it yet because I realized it's a bit redundant if you're an email subscriber and you've already signed up for it, you're going to get that email again. That could be a bit of an annoyance. So I haven't sent it out through that method. I'm trying to target our core audience members who want to reach out and actually join the Discord. That way you could be a part of the conversation 24/7, and of course get closer to myself, answer any questions that you may have. We have well-rounded members in this community like Sparta Rules and Cliff, that's WASD Moves, and Bad Habit, Tricy, and a few other members who aren't here. But we have a lot of knowledgeable, helpful members in this community that would love to help you with your ascension, that is making it to the top, that is the pinnacle, that is of PC gaming. Which, speaking of, let's go right back over into the meat and bones of the conversation, as we were in this segment of making sure you have the tools to get the job done. And we branched off because we were talking about making sure that if you're replacing your CPU cooler, that you have additional thermal paste, right? Like maybe you didn't think about that. You're saying, "Oh, I had my PC shipped to me a year ago, or I built it. It has an 8700K and a GTX 1070, and my system's about 3-4 years old. I don't know. Somebody built it for me, and what do I need to do? I want to, switch out my cooler, or I want to upgrade my CPU to say a 9900K, or I want to exchange my motherboard and my CPU. What will I need, or what do I need in terms of tools?" We're going to jump over into the hardware side, but when it comes to replacing your CPU or your CPU cooler, definitely make sure you have somewhere nearby, you've already accounted for it, you have thermal paste, a replacement thermal paste solution, rubbing alcohol, isopropyl, at least 89% proof, and lint-free lint-free pads, some form of, like, don't use paper towels. Excuse me, sorry about that. Unless they are lint-free paper towels. Again, what I recommend is either makeup remover pads or coffee filters. Those do the trick. They're non-phosphorus. They don't leave any lint behind, and they're just really easy to use with thermal paste. I don't like working with thermal paste because for some odd reason it ends up all over the place. I don't know about you, fam. Like, if you're here and this happened, you've had this experience, like, do let us know, because man, every time I use thermal paste, it just ends up all over the place. WCD's Cliff says happy birthday to Sparta Rules. That's an awesome present, absolutely. And Mrs. Ma shouts out Sparta Rules as well. And again, for those of you who didn't know, we built Sparta Rules 1993's mini ITX gaming PC. It's a heck of a video. Been getting great feedback on it from so many different people, even off of YouTube. It's a bit of an historic moment. That's the longest video I've ever published as a creator, at 42 minutes long, and it's the first time we've done something like this with working with a member in the audience or someone in the community. So I know during the process, I was in the process of getting my PO box set up, which is good to go here, and pretty soon I will start sharing it. I've been holding on to that because I want to start sharing it with the community. So if you want to send me things, you can send me stuff. You can send me broken parts. You can send me merch. You can send me a sticker. Send me stuff. I would love to do unboxings here on the live streams, as a type of live stream where I just unbox, you know, stuff sent to me from members in the audience or members of the community. That's going to be great stuff. But yeah, happy birthday to Sparta Rules. That awesome present that Cliff WASD is referring to is Sparta Rules' mini ITX gaming PC. You can find that video in the pinned comment here on the live chat, down in the comment section below, and also in the basement. I'm putting it everywhere, fam, because it is a well-rounded story. I believe it's presented in a way that's easy to follow. It's a magical experience, and that's one thing I wanted to convey as the director, if you will, of that video, and one that tells a coherent story from beginning to end, but most importantly takes you along the journey of that system from inception to conception to, say, a state of play, right, to a state of where it's able to run games and be in its final form until now. So definitely give that a watch. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you could find it in the pinned comment. But let's switch back here, because with your CPU and CPU cooler aside, with making sure you have the right materials to make that switch or that transition a smooth one, if you plan on swapping out your PSU or adding peripherals, that could require you to untangle your cable management, right? This could lead you to where you say, well, the previous person, they use a lot of zip ties. I didn't think I even needed zip ties. And this is especially applicable if you plan on adding to your mess of cables, right? You're definitely going to want to make sure you have zip ties. Zip ties, they're an affordable solution to help and make sure you keep your system cable management under control and nice and tight and mint looking and just well presented. If you look at the Threadripper build I did, the cable management was pretty decent in that video, but when I added the custom cables in the RTX 3090, the cable management got like really tricky. And so you look at that video now on that Cooler Master H500M, I use the panels on the other side of the case, so you can't even see the cables, like you can't see the cable management, but it is well knit and well woven to where I was torn on should I show the cable management in their pure form or just show it with the back plates on, because it gives the system a more universal sleek look with the cables being hidden and out of sight, and all you see is the back case right through the tempered glass. But I still am indecisive, and I may just pull it off and take a picture. So again, you might see that over on the IG or over on Instagram, which I do want to share some stills from the mini ITX build, some pictures I took during the process, and just some video I took during the process over on IG, as it kind of gives a behind the scene like feel with that video. And that's something that I did want to start to do more of on Instagram, and that's share more behind the scenes content other than just say, hey, here's a picture of me. Like, I wanted to do more than just that. Like, I also wanted to share some of those moments with the audience. But if you plan on having to untangle your cable management, this usually comes in the form of having to switch out your power supply unit. That could come in the form of an upgrade, or power supply units typically fail, right? That's one of the components that have high failure rates. You could be needing to service your power supply unit. Maybe you are super content on that power supply unit. Maybe it's fully modular and you're like, I just really need to switch out the cables. You still very much need to untangle your cable management. Zip ties are your best friend. And again, they are super fam. I almost thought I came to talk today. I promise y'all. I came to talk. But they are super affordable and a cost-effective way to help keep your system nice and clean. So make sure you have zip ties on hand and around you before you start to bust down and break down your system. Remember how I started off this live stream by saying you're going to be excited, you're going to want to rush, you're going to want to just hurry up and complete, say, the service repair or the upgrade. If it's an upgrade, you're definitely looking forward to it. And you could, let me switch back here, because that's so true. If it's an upgrade, you're definitely like rushing to get it done. You're like, man, I've been using this graphics card for the last 5 years, and I finally was able to get my hands on an RTX 30 series graphics card, or I finally got a 20 series graphics card, or I was able to upgrade to a modest 10 series graphics card. Like, I picked up a 1080 Ti on the used market for maybe about $400. That's really good, even by right now standards. If you could snag a 1080 Ti for about $4, yeah. But if you need to switch out your cable management, make sure you have zip ties on hand. Sorry, lost my train of thought really fast. As Cliff says, the RBG rat nest. Yeah, right. Especially with air, especially with you know, pr- say components like fans that have addressable RGB with them, or AIOs that have addressable RGB controllers. It could get really messy and muddled. So zip ties, I mean, buy 100 pack. Fam, if you use all 100 of it, more power to you. Who cares? Like, right? Tell them judge their mamas. But if you get black cable ties, they usually blend well with your case. Even if it's a white case, they typically blend really well with just the overall black and white aesthetic of a case, as most components have black and white components to them, if you will, in terms of their color scheme. And Cliff says, man, it's so refreshing to build a non-RGB air-cooled build with a modular power supply unit. So easy to cable management, like a dream. Yeah, when I did the Ryzen system, I believe it was a 250 Ryzen system with the $250 Ryzen system with the 2200G. I said to myself, this was like easy, and I thought I had put way too much thought into it, but I also left that, that client open for a potential upgrade down the road by going with a slightly higher wattage power supply unit. But the cable management is fairly simple. It was just 24 pin, CPU pin, SATA. That was it. Most of the cable management work went into just bundling up the excess cables, the cables that weren't going to be used, and putting them in a nice position to where they were out of sight, out of mind. As I typically like to target a good philosophy or a good start with my cable management is to be out of sight, out of mind. So but yeah, absolutely true. It does, but you're going with a non RGB build, something even with it's like with their Wraith Stealth, right, or an AMD after an AMD and manufacturer AMD cooler, right, like the Stealth. It's so much easy. Um, with an AIO, especially an AIO, say like on Core Shredder, right? Speaking of that Intermax 260 millimeter AIO, used for that video, each the water block has an ARGB header. The fans have one. The rear fan has one. It's a lot of cables back down there. If you've seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, watch the video where we install the RTX 3090. It's a whole series, the Technology series, but you can see the cable management work I put into that system just to get those cables to fit. And it was challenging. It was very challenging. There was not a lot of space, although it's a full-size ATX tower. It's a behemoth of a tower. One of my current favorite cases in terms of modern gaming. I really love the Cooler Master H500M. Maybe I should pull it up here really fast, but I digress. So maybe at the end. But I really love that case. Why pull it up, fam? Watch that video. The playlist is either down in the description box below or it's over on the home channel. If not, I will make sure to put it somewhere at the pinned comment or in the description box below for our replay viewers. Because on a side note, I want to make the live streams a bit more easier to digest for our replay viewers. That translates to making them a little bit more streamlined and shorter. So I will make sure to put it down in the description box below for our replay viewers who are interested, or if you're interested now, you can head over there at the end of the live stream. But good stuff, Cliff. Let's switch back here because we were talking about zip ties during that whole cable management diatribe. We were talking about zip ties and how they could help keep your system looking nice and neat. Go to your local Walmart, go to a hardware store, buy 100 pack, maybe buy a 50 pack. You can also maybe make it part of the aesthetics of your system, right? If there's some type of color scheme or theme that's attributed to your system, then you can maybe buy color coded zip ties. Maybe you have maybe some red RGB influence, or maybe some red coloring on your graphics card, right? Maybe it's a Power Dragon cooler, or PNY XLR8 component, something to that extent, something with a little bit of, red flare added onto it, or blue flare, or yellow. If it's an Asus TUF motherboard, maybe it has a slight yellow flare to it, right? Or if it's a Gigabyte component, which is like this off fiery like reddish orange color associated with it, you could make it part of the aesthetic of your system. So just something to keep in mind when you are shopping for zip ties. You can't go wrong with going with black color zip ties, as they will blend seamlessly with the cable management, as most of them are black line, or they're black streamlined from the 24 pin cable to your input output cables for the most part. If you're using, say, a power supply unit that's riddled with that ketchup and mustard flare, then kudos to you, fam. A power supply unit may be on your list of upgrades. There's a live stream we have where we talked about it over on that playlist. Definitely go watch it if you're one of those people using the ketchup and mustard power supply unit and you're looking to, say, make the switch to something a bit more energy efficient and higher, and has a higher rated wattage here in the 2021. But make sure you have your zip ties. Make sure, so far we talked about having your zip ties. We talked about if you're replacing your CPU and or cooler, it could be both of them, doesn't matter. You're going to pop that bad boy off. You're going to need a solution to replace the thermal paste you are wiping off. So make sure you have thermal paste, lint-free pads or non-phosphorus pads, and rubbing alcohol. It's Piperol 89%. Zip ties. Then last but not least, and I saved it for your last bit of tools to make sure that you have accessible to you, and that's access to a multi screwdriver kit with Phillips, flathead, and an Allen or hexagon bits, right? That's better known as Allen keys, right? Because the standoffs on motherboards, depending on, it could be an older motherboard. Let's say you bought a motherboard off of the used market and the standoffs aren't installed, right? Maybe the person took it off for whatever reason, or maybe you bought a motherboard where the standoffs aren't pre-installed and you need to install them yourself. This is going to be done with a hexagon bit or an Allen key bit, and maybe you didn't take that into consideration. Maybe you're looking to upgrade your case, right? Or yeah, I mean, for the most part, let's say you're looking to upgrade your case, and that new case comes with the standoffs not pre-installed. You're going to have to install them yourself. All the standoffs I encountered use Allen keys, and having access to a multi-screwdriver kit is going to help you ensure that regardless of the component, where you're, if it's capacitive thumb drives or thumb drives, capacitive thumb screws, which require a little bit more of a beefier Phillips socket or Phillip head, or if it's a screw for your SSD where you would need to streamline Phillips, having access to a multi screwdriver kit with each of those Phillips or each of those heads will save you headaches and help you mitigate any potential roadblocks you may run into, right? And this is also true for screws, right? Like if you don't have access, if you bought a component and it's missing screws, right? Like let's say you bought your case off the used market, or you bought your cooler off the used market. A pro tip is to take one of those screws and if you can, look at the manual to see what the screw head type is, right? If it's a circular Phillips, is it rounded Phillips? Is it a machine screw? Is it a wood? Is it a wood? Most of the time it's machine screws, but if you can, go to a local hardware store. Take that one screw, if anything, take that one screw and see if you can find a replacement, especially more than one, for that screw. If you don't have the screws at all, take the whole component, take the whole part. If it's the case, take the case. Say, hey, I need a screw for this case. And you may look a little silly and awkward, but it doesn't matter, fam. We got a mission to accomplish. That's getting your new components into your new case, or getting that service in your system to get it up and running again. So who cares what you look like? Take the component, take the AIO. I've done it. I had to do it with the Intermax 360 millimeter AIO. Speaking of, I bought that AIO used off the used market from a seller off the Facebook Marketplace, and it didn't have all of the screws to mount the radiator to the case. Right, it had like 4 of them, I believe, and you needed more, but you needed 8. So I took the screw, didn't help, and so I took the whole AIO there as well, and that allowed me to find the necessary screw. But you can do this, and you could also buy more than one of those screws. So in the event you have that issue again, you don't have to go out and make that trip. Again, it's about saving not just money, but it's also about saving you time so that you can put both of those things into either enjoying your system or to investing, by enhancing your system. And also, family time is important. If you got a family or a significant other, of course, you have more time to spend with them as well. But saving time and money, you could also put that in your system. So let's jump over in here. That was our third tip. Let's jump over into our final thoughts, because prior proper planning can leave you with a poor performing PC. It's the 6 P's, or what I've delegated the 6 P's. Y'all haven't heard it anywhere else because I'm the first to say it. But it's the 6 P's, right? Like, prior proper planning could leave you with a poor performing PC. This is a process, fam. Like, this is a process, a thought process, a series of events that lead you towards the assembly and setup of your system. And with having to navigate the trenches through scalpers, bots, shortages, and more, it's become harder than ever planning and building around such circumstances, which hasn't eliminated the possibility, right? Like, it's still possible to get into PC gaming. Those things have made it harder. It hasn't like cut it off completely. It's just made it slightly harder, right? It's made it more challenging, requiring you to put more thought into the process to ensure a successful and a system that will perform in a way that you expected to, and in a way that you invested it in. Especially with giving most systems requiring at least a budget of $1,000 with a dedicated video card. Fam, that could be a Ryzen 2600 and a B450 motherboard and 16 gigabytes of DDR4 and a 500 gigabyte SSD, standard SSD. That might run you altogether about $500. Power supply, unit, and case, let's bump it up to about 600. But for a decent GPU, for example, a 1660 Super, or better yet, even a 1660 Ti or an RX 580 or something along the lines of maybe even a GTX 980 Ti, if you want to step it down a class, remember that's that compromise part we talked about in last week's live stream, right? You can start there, build and expand later. But the goal is to make sure you're getting a system that you can be proud of for months and years to come. Much like what we talked about at the conclusion of the mini ITX build, right? That system has all of the tools to get the job done, not just today, but also in the future and quite possibly beyond. It's on the X570 chipset. It has 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. So it's outfitted with a lot of tools that won't necessarily make it underperform anytime soon. It's an amazing process. It's a challenging process, but it is possible. Take your time, research your components before you buy. Just remember, a poorly planned PC can lead you with a poorly performing PC. Something to that extent, the 6Ps. I said it when I sat down. I'm like, oh man, a prior, there's the saying is it goes a different way. It's like piss poor performance leads, something to that along the lines is more associated with work. But I flipped the switch and attributed to the 6Ps, and that's prior proper planning can leave you with a poor performing PC. So research all your components before you buy them or before showing interest in them, and that's going to ensure you that you have a system again that you could be proud of, and one that's going to check off all of the requirements that you're looking for in a system. All right, let me switch back here really fast to before, for those of you who sticked around, I said that I was going to bring up the article I was referring to on Thursday's pop-up live stream, where it's pointing out that with the Ethereum 2.0 update, it's going to make graphics card mining less of a demand. So Cliff says, quick heads up, you guys. Amazon has Corsair A500 massive tower air cooler for $44. I ordered one. I figured, hell, the two maglev fans were almost worth it. Yeah, nice. You know what? Amazon's running a sale on a few components. I think I saw SSDs like 20 selling about 20% lower than normal. So good stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Cliff. For those of you who are interested in an air cooler, look up the Corsair A500. It's a cooler for a fully sized ATX tower. So do keep that in mind if you're running with something low profile. And I will say that building a mini ITX system, I'm hooked. I want to do it again. We have the mini ITX system that I've been putting on hold. Again, it's in the case. Let me see if I can grab it down here. I say this every time, but no secret here. This part, oh, the box is upside down. But this is going to be the case I use to build the mini ITX, our next mini ITX build, which is going to be a series of videos. But can't wait to get this started. I've already started parting out and ordering the parts that we're going to use for this system. And man, oh man, it's going to be a fun ride. I cannot wait to share this with you. If you love the mini ITX video we did with the Fantex Evolve Shift Air, then you're going to love building the TU-150 mini ITX case. It's going to be truly, truly, truly a fun experience and fun ride. Thunder says, what's up? It's good to see you, Thunder. What's going on, Thunder? You kind of came in towards the end of the stream, son, as we were just getting ready, or we just wrapped up with the wrap up. But yeah, we just hit the end of the stream, Thunder. But what's up? It's good to see you again. On your way in or on your way out, just do me a favor, hit that like button for me if you're unable to stay, and if you're just now watching or if you're watching the replay, definitely subscribe. We have a lot of helpful and informative videos coming up. Also, the 1 year anniversary of the live streams is coming up on August 19th. That will be officially 1 year from when I started this, before we started the live show, and the live show just evolved each month from August to where we are now, just from little cues and even just the aesthetic of the live stream. So you're going to hear me talk about this more than once, but when that happens, when we come across, we're going to do a special live stream. Not, something, not nothing too grand like the anniversary live stream, but we are going to do something celebratory. And the live stream or the live show will go on a 10-day, if you will, which could be about 2 weeks, but it could go on a 10-day hiatus or a 10-day break, and then we'll come back with essentially what would be season two of the weekly Inside the Lab show. And I have a lot of interesting changes that are going to come along the way, and I'll just look forward to it. Cliff says, what case was that, Lab? That was the Lian Li TU-150 mini ITX case. Beautiful case. I love it. I love everything about it. I wish I could use a larger radiator size, but it is what it is. You're usually limited to 120 anyway, the mini ITX case. But it's all good. I'm just looking forward, and not only that, but just the purpose for that PC. There's more to it. There's a whole story associated with it, and there's so much more to that PC. But yeah, it's a beautiful case. I love it indeed. But yeah, do keep a lookout for that. So let me switch back here really fast. And again, if you haven't yet, sign up for our email list as it pops up, but that's not what we're talking about. So this article, yes, it is from Digital Trends. So shout out to Digital Trends, which I believe is Hardware Unboxing's website. Could be wrong, but anyway, doesn't matter. But shout out to Digital Trends, the men and women over there for reporting on this. But this article points out to the conversation and topic that was centered around Thursday's pop-up live stream, and that's the upcoming changes to Ethereum 2.0, which is one of the popular bitcoins that's being mined right now. And let me find the bulk of the conversation, the bulk of the meat or the content in this blog post, but it says here Chinese miners comprise the majority of miners around the world, and the country's recent restrictions have pushed them out of the market. China has banned crypto mining in certain regions to combat money laundering, payments for illegal activity. So this is the catalyst for the upcoming boom in used graphics cards that we're going to see. This is what started it, right? As earlier in the article it pointed out that some cards are even selling below the suggested price, and because of those restrictions put on by China on the cryptocurrency market, graphics cards are flooding the secondhand market in China for ludicrously low prices. That is likely going to, we're going to see some of those graphics cards are going to make their way over into the US market, especially the used US market. But again, with China cracking down on cryptocurrency mining and shutting down farms, this is caused large mining farms. Again, here as it says here, reports show that mining farms are looking to offload their cards before the prices sink even more. Excuse me. Key there, offload their cards before they sink even more, right? With RTX 3060 models, which were $1,100 in parts of Europe, going for about $340 right now. And I totally believe it. I think this is the case. I think this is definitely a possibility, that we could likely see RTX 3060s selling for maybe not 340. We could be there. We could be months before we see them that low. But if I switch back here, let me go to eBay just really fast. Let's see what RTX 3060s are selling for now. And it's still ridiculously high. So we haven't felt the impact of China's restriction on GP miners just yet. But as this report indicates, that it is starting to manifest itself over in the Chinese used market. It says here, the exodus of cars from mining farms is good news for the GPU market, but that doesn't mean you should try to snag a card from China. So I agree to a certain extent, because as this article points out too, you're buying a mined graphics card. So that graphics card was likely ran for in excess of periods where you normally wouldn't run your graphics card for those amount of lengths. Likely is running on custom BIOS, a custom mining BIOS. It's probably been undervolted. It's been altered to some form or fashion to where you may need to make changes to get it to work out of the box, right? But this article also points out that most sellers are offloading cards in bulk through in-person transactions, meaning they're not selling them online. They're not, for the most part, they're not silly. So it's being done in in-person transactions, and it's here where I think we will start to see from those in-person transactions, those buyers trying to actually turn a profit on those graphics cards. So in those in-person transactions, if you're buying an RTX 3060 for about $340, you may want to take that and still try to sell it for 50% more over here in the States, and could be one of the reasons why we're still seeing them sell at still ridiculously high prices. Still, here it's $747. The RTX 3060 we use in the mini ITX video, the video we were referring to, that RTX 3060 costs somewhere along the ballpark of, I believe it's $750 to $800. So this is still very much consistent with that trend. Unfortunately, we're not seeing them that low, and it could be this reason. It could be for that reason why right here, and that's a lot of the transactions are being done in person and not online. But as the article points out, that these cards have likely been operating at full capacity for months or even years, so they wouldn't make a good addition to your next gaming PC. I'm not sure if I would say they wouldn't make a good addition to your next gaming PC. Like all things involved with buying a used graphics card, there could be some risk involved with it, right? Maybe you buy the graphics card and it only has about a month's worth of lifespan left inside of it, or left with it, so it could fail a bit sooner, or it could need its thermal paste replaced because it ran, and it ran at full capacity for long periods of time, where most gamers and consumers, we're going to turn our system on, we're going to play some games, we'll turn it off, or maybe you jumped on to create a thumbnail, uh, create encode video or something to that extent. But for the most part, if it's a mined, and if it's a GPU that's been mined on, it's being pushed for long periods of time. So the article points out that if anything, the news shows that demand for graphics cards, particularly from crypto mining, is dropping. So this is one domino that needs to fall to allow the other dominoes to fall. The problem isn't just one fold, it's like trifold. It's more than one. We have the high demand for semiconductors. We have the high demand of cryptocurrency mining. And I wouldn't necessarily say there's a higher demand for PC gamers, but there's also the higher demand for Radeon based chips and APUs and custom boards, because the PS5 and the Xbox Series SX use hardware that is more akin to PCs more now than ever. But here's where it gets interesting, as the article points out. That changes to Ethereum, a popular. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I don't know. I suck. But anyway, changes to Ethereum, a popular Bitcoin alternative, could also further reduce demand over the year. And I also verified this off of the Digital Trends website. One thing I always recommend: don't just take everything for what I say at face value. Do your own research. Any content creator you watch, any tech creator you watch, their numbers, their data, their information. Do your own market research. Read up on the component. Don't just take their word at face value. Don't take mine as well. I myself went off of Digital Trends website and tried to verify this very thing myself, and I went right to ethereum.org's website to read more about the Ethereum 2.0 update and how it's going to change the way Ethereum is processed, essentially. Again, cryptocurrency mining, not my wheelhouse. Not even going to act like I know what's going on over there in that market. It's just it's a market I haven't really paid attention to. My stance on GPU mining officially. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just because I don't do it doesn't mean you should or shouldn't. I think it's up to the manufacturers to meet the demands, to meet the supply demand of both consumer groups, that being miners and DIY enthusiasts over on the PC segment. Nigel Governor, it's good to see you, Nigel. I think this is our first time having an opportunity of chatting with you. Welcome to the live show, Nigel. Nigel says 6700 XT or 3060. They're almost the same price in South Africa. What's your take? I would definitely lean towards the RTX 3060 if they are about the same price, and that's because the VRAM, slightly faster VRAM, slightly higher CUDA cores. The 3060 is a fantastic graphics card, Nigel. If you want to see benchmarks on that graphics card, you can watch the mini ITX video. It's in the pinned comment section here in the live chat or down in the description box below. But watch that video. You can see the performance output the RTX 3060 has, and we have both 1080p benchmarks and 1440p benchmarks, so you can see how far that graphics card can really stretch. And it's why I would go with the 3060, because it's a graphics card that can handle itself really well at both of those resolutions, especially with that VRAM buffer. But yeah, I would go with the RTX 3060, especially if they are similarly priced. Cliff says the Micro Center has 7 ASRock 6700 XTs for $900 each. Wow. That's, you know what? I've seen 6700 XTs in stock as well, or on the pop-up live stream, I believe it was. I had stated that I saw one. I could have pulled the trigger on it. It's not a graphics card necessarily. I would be my first choice, simply because it's still not as widely compared to other graphics cards and other content strategy and just other components that are part of the content strategy. The 6700 XT wasn't quite there, but I did see some for about the same price. It was about $850 to $900, but not at Micro Center. But again, if I would make a recommendation, my recommendation would be the RTX 3060. Nigel, I'm not sure what your hardware situation is currently, but do tell us. We also have a poll going on at the top of the live chat there, but do tell us, are you looking to say upgrade to that graphics card? Are you looking to add it to, a build? Because really, between those two graphics cards, it could also depend on what the CPU you're going with and with the resolution you're looking to game on. Those two are also factors we would want to take into consideration. But off the top of my head, pardon my ignorance, I would recommend the RTX 3060 in that case if they are similarly priced over in South Africa. But shout out to Nigel over in South Africa. I love engaging with our friends and fam all over the world. But yeah, awesome stuff, guys. But as the article points out here, just switch it back really fast. Most sellers are offloading. The article says right here. Let me go up here. I think I lost it. Okay. So it says the exodus of cards from mining farms is good news for the GPU market. That doesn't mean you should try to snag a card from China. Fair. Most sellers are offloading cards in bulk. We read that part. Man, all right. It says here that, excuse me. Plus, it's important to remember that these cards have been operating full capacity. One of the reasons why I said be mindful when buying a mining card at any point of, your journey. It says that, if anything, the news shows that demand for graphics cards, particularly from crypto miners, is dropping. Changes to Ethereum, a popular Bitcoin mining alternative, could further reduce demand over the next year. There are 5 updates coming to Ethereum over the next several months that would essentially remove graphics cards from the cryptocurrency equation altogether. That is huge. That is huge, because cryptocurrency miners have painted this illusion that there's not enough graphics cards around. But if one mining farm picks up about 200 to 300 graphics cards, they have all the graphics cards. They're not available and accessible to consumers because one particular mining farm bought up more than they need, right? Or they bought up large bundles. Sorry about that. They bought up large bundles. But removing graphics cards altogether from the cryptocurrency equation, that's good news for the long term, not just for the graphics card situation to stabilize right now. Because I'm still seeing used graphics cards like the GTX 1060, the RX 580, the RTX 2060, right? Still seeing those used, the GTX 970 and 980 Ti. Still seeing some of those graphics cards sell for about 30 to 40% more than what they're truly worth. So we're going to need the cryptocurrency situation to be removed from the equation altogether to allow this wave of normalcy to both markets, right? To both the used market and the new market. The article says CoinDesk points out that Ethereum improved proposals will make the biggest difference in 2021. The first Ethereum, the Ethereum improvement proposal, the first IEP 1559, changes how transaction fees work with Ethereum. Miners now bid on transactions, which requires a complex fee estimation algorithm. So this is one of the reasons why graphics cards are a part of the mining equation. But according to the Ethereum Foundation, these algorithms often end up not working very well, leading to frequent fee overpayment. This proposal changes fees to a fixed price, which would decrease revenue for miners. They're not going to be very happy, y'all. Which I could see why in some of my research I did on this topic, not all miners are on board with the Ethereum 2.0 shift, and this is the reason why. I mean, they're going to lose money, and any business that has the ability to lose money will, of course, not be in all that enthused with this change. Tricion, is good to see you, brother T. And while Tricion came in, let's use Tricion for example. That that correlates with exactly what I was saying. Not all miners are on board with the Ethereum 2.0 change, as I can tell by Tricion's emoji that he is one of those people who aren't on board. That's with the change, but um, it's a win lose win depending on which light or which side of that army you are fighting on. But this change, right? This or the as the article points out, let's keep reading. The goal is to make Ethereum less volatile. So that is the alleged trade-off. So maybe Tricion could add additional context to that because again, Bitcoin mining is in my wheelhouse. I've only followed it because it's one of the factors that has affected the overall GPU market. So I've followed it in regard or in respect to that. But let us know, is that the case, Tricion, or anybody else that does that mines Ethereum? Let us know here on with the replay if you're watching on the replay or right here right now in the live chat. But it says it would not only change the transaction fee payout, but also avoid the possibility of mining without a reward. The other proposal is EIP 3554, which is the famous or infamous, as it points out here, depending on your stance. We think Tricion is on the latter and not the former, but it says the EIP 3554 proposal moves to Ethereum 2.0. It moves Ethereum from a proof of work model to a proof of stake model. Without getting too deep in the crypto weeds, the new model requires less power from graphics cards because the network itself can verify transactions based on a miner's stake in Ethereum. Y'all hear that? The new model requires less power from graphics cards because the network itself can verify transactions based on a miner's stake in Ethereum. Now, again, I don't mine Ethereum. This may not jive well with, users who do mine Ethereum and Ethereum stakeholders. But the fact that the new model requires less power from graphics cards is an interesting shift, as again, it completely removes the graphics card essentially out of the equation. This is why we could expect a potential flood of RTX 2060s, 5700 XTs, GTX 1660 Supers, 2070s. But we could see those kind of graphics cards flood the used market here in the second half of 2021 or in the early parts of 2022. Tricion says, I don't totally agree with it becoming less volatile, but EIP 1559 is meant to decrease inflation. I'm not selling my Ethereum, so that's good for me in a way, but I'll be getting less Ethereum per day. Proof of stake won't even need graphics cards. Right, so that's what I'm saying. The proof of stake model would, requires less power from the graphics cards. As it says, the network itself can verify transactions based on a miner stake in Ethereum. From a PC gamer's perspective or from a tech channel's perspective, this is going to be good for the community. It's going to be good for one market, but possibly bad for another, right? I will identify that, or I will point that out, or as Tricion adding to the conversation points out that I'm not on board with the EIP 1550 or the EI. I don't agree with it becoming less volatile, but as Tricion points out from his perspective, adding commentary to the conversation, that it's going to decrease inflation. Now, it does remain to be seen on how the algorithms, as the article points out, how the algorithm will play nicely with the EIP 1559 and EIP 3554. But I do. I mean, my heart goes out to Ethereum miners. Again, I have no quarrels with miners, right? With users who like to mine and they're able to turn a profit, maybe make some extra money. Maybe it's something that you would just enjoy doing as a hobby, right? Kudos to you, but this is good for one market, but bad for another potentially. In the long run, hopefully these proposals, the 1559 proposal and the 3554 proposal that moved to Ethereum 2.0, that trade-off pays off in the long run. That mining without the reward or changing the transaction fee payout, maybe the trade-off is meant to pay off down the road. It says it rolls out on December 1st, but they've been rolled out and the proposals have all been rolled out, but I believe December 1st is when will make the official change to Ethereum 2.0. As it says here, small changes around the world are helping to end the GPU shortage directly and indirectly, although we still have many months before things return to normal. News of failing GPU prices and changes to Ethereum show that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll switch back over off this website again. Shout out to Digital Trends for the helpful and informative article. I will try to remember to drop that down in the description box below if that's something you want to give a read yourself. If you like myself and you just want to read and take in the content for yourself, I will make sure to drop it down in the comment section. If you just now join us, or if you just now come on board, first and foremost, on your way in or out, do me a favor, hit this like button and subscribe for me if you haven't yet. I welcome you to subscribe as we have a lot of helpful topics and conversations popping up and in the future. But I think it's all right now. I think it's time to slowly end the ride. As I told you, the format of the live streams will change. They will be in a easier, digestible format for the audience with a little. Wow, why does my mic keep doing that? I think it's I'm tapping the headset here. But my apologies if you heard that. But the live stream format slowly changing, and I want to make them a little bit more streamlined and easier and an easier piece of content to digest. But I think the ride is slowly coming to an end. I do want to give a quick shout out to everybody who was able to jump on board. As I see Cliff says, I got to run, guys, in the thick of Micro Center, and the fellow nerds are out in full force. Have a great show, guys, and take care. Yeah, Cliff, enjoy your Micro Center trip. We were just wrapping up things and giving our closing shout outs. So shout out to Cliff, shout out to Tricion for popping board, man. Love seeing you on the stream, Tricion. Again, if you haven't yet, hit the like button for me on your way out. Shout out to Tricion, shout out to Nigel. It was good having you on board, Nigel, and conversing with you. If you haven't yet, take part in our community poll that's in the live chat. And also, if you haven't yet, if you haven't had the opportunity of watching the mini ITX build video, go ahead and give that a watch. It's also in the pinned comment right here in the live chat, and will be pinned down in the comment section of this video. But shout out to Thunder, shout out to our moderator, Mrs. Mod, Sparta Rules 1993, again for getting his PC on Monday, which is also his birthday. So again, shout out to Sparta Rules, happy early birthday, if you will. Maybe we'll give you also a happy belated shout out birthday on next week's live stream. But you're gonna love your system, man. It's gonna be a great system. So shout out to you, Sparta Rules. And let me scroll up here really fast. Thunder, we got Thunder. And so yeah, that was it. Yeah, and Tricion says take care, man. Yeah, definitely take care, Tricion. Again, I appreciate you guys and gals who came on board and tuned in for this week's live show. We will be back next week full force with an upcoming most likely 2 or 3 part series discussing, of course, again, all things PC gaming. So I'm sorry, I got caught up on Mrs. Mod's comment. But again, thanks for hanging out during this YouTube live stream. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, you know what to do. Be easy. Hey Tricion, same to you. Tricion says have a nice one, everyone. Same to you, Tricion, and everybody. If you're here on the replay and you made it this far, once again, shout out to our replay viewers. Shout out to Tricion. Give it, blessing everybody with a great night. Tricion, you as well, fam, young fam. You have a a great weekend, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I look forward to, rapping with you over in the Discord. Sign up for our Discord if you haven't yet. Down in the description box below. Details are in the devil, y'all. Down in the description box below. Check it out. Catch you all in the next one. Be easy. Hey, same to you, Sparta Rules. Sparta Rules says, see you later, brother. I think he might have dipped out, but same to you, Sparta Rules, man. Have a good night, great weekend, and I will catch you all in the next one.